And as a profession, we have we have we have refrained from taking any kind of accusatory positions when HR people problem. Our focus is on discussing to find out what the facts are before we make any judgment. So we're not going to find her much because same thing we feel we must do in the public domain when we hear that people, we must investigate before we pass judgment.
Okay. The other comment by Anne-Marie says she agrees about the us investigating the breaches and stuff. So she says, as long as the discipline, the execution of it is not biased, it's that it's objective and transparent versus because some persons do things out of bias, and therefore it's important. She also says that HERMAD needs to change with the changing times. Digital policies can be developed. HERMAD needs to lead the way and set the trend accordingly. And we totally agree with that comment. The other question.
I agree. President,
yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Anne-Marie's an attorney at law, so maybe Anne-Marie's an attorney at law. I don't know if she'd want to speak on the microphone and tell us maybe one or two things that she feels that, given the fact that discipline is so well established as a practice in the legal profession, whether Anne-Marie would be able to tell us some things that we should avoid, since we're going into something that's very new. So Anne-Marie.
Good night, President, Jackie, Dennis, an old friend of mine. In the legal profession, we have the Professional Code of Ethics, and we are governed by the General Legal Counsel. And of course, in developing your Code of Ethics, one can look to the policy of an established organization, such as the General Legal Counsel, and be guided accordingly. And I noticed you mentioned, Mr. Michael, that in law, a person is innocent until proven guilty, despite the seriousness of the allegations. So one has to be minded of whether the matter was brought before the court and whether the person was found guilty or not, and use that to guide your own internal investigations and decisions as well, in terms of taking somebody off the list, in terms of their ethical behavior, because you don't want to come across as biased and perhaps disenfranchise your members and or give the public the wrong perception about a particular HR professional person.
The catch-22 as well, Anne-Marie.
And the catch-22. So it's important in developing that document and that register. It's widely circulated, and you have the feedback of your membership. And the persons that you use in your mentorship program, it's important that those are persons of high ethical standards and accountability. Okay. Similar standards that we use in the legal profession. You want HR professional should be persons above repute, and they should not bring the profession into disrepute. So that's very important as well.
Okay. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
You're welcome, Madam President.
Should we say happy birthday, Melissa? To her, we see happy birthday behind her.
I was just about to comment on the happy birthday banner behind her.
Honestly, it was the 27th of September, but I'm still celebrating. And I will be celebrating until next year, September the 26th. I celebrate for a year.
Okay.
So I am accepting belated birthday gifts.
All right. We perhaps will give her responsibility, HERMAD responsibility, and that would help to be the birthday present from here.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. I see a question being asked. Will the document be made available to all? And there are some persons who have put their email. And I said, yes, it will be made available digitally. Just in case you are not reading, it will send it digitally to you. If we don't have your email address I would encourage you to either put it in the chat, so that we can at least have it here. And you can also send an email to SB, come Susan, help me, SBHRMAJ. Right?
I'm here. No, to hrmaj@cwjamaica.com.
Thank you. Say it again, please.
hrmaj@cwjamaica.com. We will
right.
post it on the website and it will be sent out via social media pages.
hrmaj@cwjamaica.com, right? And I put it in the chat so you can take a picture of it in case you didn't get that. There are some persons, one person, Dion said that she was grateful. She was grateful for she appreciated the idea of the mentorship program. Anne-Marie said the mentorship program is an excellent idea, should be interested in that program. And so MB says, as we look at ethics and develop code of ethics, we must understand that this is more than a code. This needs to speak to deeper elements of cultural norms and values. And bigly, personality, part of the public education needs to address values and attitudes. Anne-Marie said restoration has to play a part of our profession. And Teraz says, hello to the board. What qualifies someone as an HR professional? I have a BSc in HR and about 11 years combined experience in HR in areas recruitment and development. You are very much qualified, ma'am, in the eyes of Hermage. Yes, you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I now turn back over to moderator Melissa. I was just monitoring the chats for you, madam.
Thank you, President Loy, much appreciated. So we'll allow members to unmute the mic and pose questions openly or to any particular member of the panel that you wish to speak to. T. Kirby? Yes, T. Kirby, are you speaking? Not hearing you.
I am sorry, I'm not speaking. I am very much new to Hermage, so I'm actually listening and would want to have more insight of the code of ethics. So I'm not speaking. Sorry, my hand accidentally unmute.
Well, welcome. Welcome.
That's fine. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you.
I have a question I would like to ask.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, what is the name? All right. So, Hermage gives the guideline, I presume, and direction as to the proper HR practices and policies and guidelines. But as it relates to teeth, does it have any teeth, or is it that they just advise, so to speak? And that's
Michael?
to President Walters.
Oh, me? I was passing it to Michael. But
all right, sorry.
No problem.
And the follow-up question to that is, does the whistleblowers legislation supported, and how would it apply if there are breaches in this regard?
Michael, you want to answer? Or you want to start?
Well, the whistleblower legislation, you may want to comment on that, President, in terms of, because typically employers have their whistleblower, their own whistleblower policies. Mm-hmm. So then if you want to comment on that more generally.
Okay. Talk about the other one first and then I'll...
All right. So the other one has to do with whether HR has any authority, right? Hermage has any regulatory power, for example. So no, as we said earlier, the focus of our code is on self-regulation. And we don't have any legal power to sanction individuals. But but as an association, um, we can address concerns with people who are members of the association. And the code is going to, as it has always done, the code allows us to have a basis for having those conversations on professional practice breaches with people who are our members. So that is the sum total that we have today of kind of self regulation. We can actually address membership, people's rights to membership, under our current arrangements. Where we're going, Hopeton, with the register, um, is to have an agreement with organizations, trade associations, and so on, Small Business Association, PSOJ, and so on, Employees Federation, that given the challenges that have arisen in every profession today, it's medical, legal, accounting profession, we recognize that we're not exempt from those challenges. And so what we want to do is to offer the opportunity for employers to be able to find out if somebody that they're going to recruit in HR management is a person in good standing in the profession. I can't imagine that a serious employer would not want to know if a potential recruit to HR to handle very sensitive matters is in good standing in the profession. And so the register, the idea behind the register is to provide a continuously updated list of people who are in good standing in the profession, so that a recruiter will have more confidence in recruiting somebody for that kind of role. And somebody may ask, well, what if somebody doesn't register? Well, if employers understand the value of consulting a register that's properly maintained, then people will want to be registered, because you will then have to explain to a potential recruiter, why are you not on that list? And so the register is an attempt really to provide a comfort point, reference point for recruiters, and also a means by which we encourage HR professionals to make their chances of being considered surer, since we're going to be promoting the value of consultations and consulting of this list for people who are recruiting HR people. And if people hire people who are not on this list at some point, and the people get into trouble, then people then have to understand that maybe if they had chosen to consult the list, then they would have been better off. So we want our HR register, when we establish it, to be on the checklist of things that a recruiter uses to determine whether or not they are now ready to hire somebody to work in HR. So that's how we intend to ramp up what we call self-regulation. We do intend, Hopeton, to move to securing regulatory support for self-regulation, as the accountants do today. So that is where, as the medical association, there's a medical council today. We intend to move to secure regulatory support for the self-regulation arrangements that we have in place and are putting in place.
Okay, hoped on the Whistleblower Act, which is the Protected Disclosure Act, came out in 2011, and it speaks to, and it says, an act to encourage and facilitate the making by employees of specified disclosures of improper conduct in the public interest, to regulate the receiving, investigating, and otherwise dealing with the disclosures of improper conduct, to protect employees who make specified disclosures from being subjected to occupational deterrent, and for related matters. So that act is there, And so we can always tie in what we do to that. But it really focuses more on public interest, you know, and so it speak a lot to it. It just says it will we can work with it, because when you look at the act itself, it talks about who is an employee, who is an employer, and what improper conduct is. It clearly, it doesn't specifically speak to HR persons. It just speaks in general. But we can work with it, Hope John. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. And I endorse that a registry in and of itself is a tool that persons can pull from a pool, and it would be very and will be very effective. So even without the regulatory power, I agree that you will still have a major impact in enhancing the HR practices across Jamaica.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we know that Anne-Marie Bishop has her hand up, but Anne-Marie, before we take her question, I want to just go quickly back to the chat as well and acknowledge the comment made by, can't see your name, but it says Galaxy J6. And it says, idea of a mentorship program is highly welcomed. I can relate to the experience of not having a go-to person to share with or get guidance. I'm also advocating for Hamash to establish chapters in regions across Jamaica to more actively include HR practitioners in suburban and rural Jamaica. So Galaxy J6, may we have your name if you could unmute yourself, please? Galaxy J6. All right, well, we take.
Oh, I am Charmaine Gordon.
Charmaine Gordon, welcome. Thank you, Charmaine. All right, so we take point on the advocacy for rural chapters. We have a Western chapter, but I think as we stretch our tentacles and we have membership across the island, President Loy will perhaps look at additional chapters where the membership is strong. So,
right, and we have a chapter at UE as well.
Right.
For UE students. Yes, but we can discuss more with you to see where you are and how we can reach. And one of the great things about the time we are in, we could be in England right now and still be online. You know, so that's a great right. And we have our members meetings monthly. Western chapter has theirs monthly. There's the general Hermat. We have our members meeting monthly. So if you contact the office, you can get all of that information and do it. But we'll definitely be looking at the mentorship, and definitely we'll be looking at spreading our wings in this our 40th
Very good.
year.
I'm happy to hear that. Yes. Thank you. That's very reassuring. I really didn't know we had a Western chapter. And for years I was in the Eastern region, but currently I am now in Kingston, so I can be engaged now.
Yes. Okay, so we look forward to hearing from you.
Yes.
So please reach out to Miss Bradber, Susan Bradber, and the team at the Secretariat tomorrow. So we look forward to engaging with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
All right, Anne-Marie Bishop, your floor.
Thank you again. I just want to add to something that our president says about the Protected Disclosures Act. The question raised by Mr. Noel. It's an important piece of legislation as far as whistleblowing is concerned. It has some drawbacks, and the public interest is whatever the public interest is perceived by the society at the time. So there are some subjective aspects to the legislation, but it's a fairly new legislation. And over time, depending on the circumstances, certain things may change. And now we're in a new norm where COVID is concerned. Who knows what changes will come out or will come forth based on this act, as in other legislation. But in terms of legal framework, this act is relatively new. It's only 9 years. We have acts on the books that are over 50, 80 years old or more that need to change with the time. I support the view that we need other chapters, and I'm advocating for the northern region, which is St. Anne.
Okay.
So I know we're in the digital world and we can be anywhere, you know, but I will say that for the new persons who are on, I've been a part of her match for, I believe Miss Dennis can say maybe more than 10 years, at least 8, perhaps.
You're muted, Anne-Marie.
There's so many activities being done. I was really impressed to receive the email of activities for this week. And I must congratulate the president and her team for the planned activities for this week. And continue to share the information through the St. Anne Chamber of Commerce. And when I get it, I share it as well with them. So you're doing a great job and continue to keep us informed.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. We do a lot of partnership with PSOJ, and so we push that info because you know the Chamber of Commerce is also a part of that, and so we send it. But we can send it to you directly. Just let Jackie know. You know we know of your connection there. So anything you need, just let us know.
I must also say congratulations. In the COVID period, when we had the issue with the workplace and employers and employees, you sent out a lot of information that I have forwarded to not just the chamber, but similar organizations, that policies and directions and COVID protocols that I shared so they could be aware of workplace proper procedures. So I must commend your team for the last several months of communication and the various stuff that you have been doing. But I'm going to make a suggestion. Similar to the General Legal Council, where we have to do certain courses, a number of courses per year to be to qualify to continue practice as an ongoing learning, which they call CLPD training. Perhaps in creating the register and other documents to keep the profession in check, you could perhaps consider making it compulsory. Certain courses that will keep us on our toes as HR professionals. So in the legal profession, we have to do ethics courses and general courses.
Okay.
So it's something to consider. So for example, and everything has a cost. We pay about $4,500 per course. And for example, as a senior attorney, I need to do 12, I need to get 12 credits per year. Otherwise, we will not get our practicing certificate. We also need to do accounting report. So something similar to that. Certain courses should be compulsory for your practicing and non-practicing HR professionals on an annual basis for them to remain on the register. I'm suggesting.
Okay.
So it's
That's
a matter
something
of
we've been looking at.
Yes.
Right. That's something we've been looking at. I don't know if Michael wants to speak more to it, but that's something that we've been looking at in terms of certification, which is what you are suggesting.
Yes.
All right, so we're looking at local certification. We spent quite a bit of time talking about it, but we're looking at local certification, which would see people being examined on HR practice areas. So for example, the practice principles and practices of compensation, for example, and labor relations, and so on. And the idea here is to issue what we call an HRCP, an HR certified professional. That would be the qualification, HRCP. So that's the direction we're headed. It will take some work, but I want to say there's going to be an opportunity here for, for people in the profession to be facilitators, for people who can run courses to prepare people for these exams that people will have to do. But it is essentially intended to ensure that people get a chance to be examined on their understanding and experience in HR practice areas. So you'd have gotten an undergraduate degree in HR, or you may have a master's in HR. This is not intended to test an individual's academic preparation, but to focus on determining whether an individual is sufficiently versed on HR practice, um, and, 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 and adequately experienced for us to be able to hold them out as a certified HR practitioner. And as I said before, the plan is for Hermage then to, through its own registrar, issue something called the HRCP, which is a Human Resource Certified Professional.
Thank you, VP Michael. So in the comments, Dawn Beckford had added, what is the criteria to be on that list of HR professionals? VP Michael, you had provided an answer that says it's a member primarily of good it's a register, sorry, primarily of good standing. Dawn Beckford, does that answer in entirety your question?
Not quite. I understand what Michael just explained a while ago about persons who are working in the profession and has experience. But I was wondering how Hermage would determine good standing. Is it that you would be interviewing people who have worked in HR? What would be the benchmark? What is it that you're going to use to measure the level of professionalism of our HR persons who work in HR, Michael?
Right, so that's a great question. So I want to distinguish the HR register from the certification. Let's just assume that you have a certification register at some point, which is people who have completed certification exams. That would be different from the HR register. The register is not intended to help employers to know how professional, whether people are qualified or not. That's something that recruiters would have to do using their normal psychometric tests, evaluation of resumes and so on. What the register attempts to do is to invite people to register so that when recruiters consult this register, they will find their names on the list as people who are in good standing. And good standing is not about whether you have experience. Good standing is whether or not your practice as an HR professional is ethical. Whether or not there are issues that we're aware of, and this is the reason why the objective here is going to be to ensure that each year we provide an individual with a certificate of good standing. And before we issue that certificate, an individual will have to prove to us that they remain in good standing. So it may mean that somebody has to complete an assessment. We would then have to do an investigation of that to make sure that those things that for us telegraph that an individual is in good standing are satisfactory to us before we would then issue that certificate of good standing. So we are in the process. We're not there yet, but that's where we're headed. But the objective here is to make sure that we put the onus on an individual to provide us with satisfactory evidence that there is nothing unethical about them to prevent them from remaining on the register.
So does it mean then that you personally will have to fill out like a questionnaire?
Yes.
That asks certain questions, and would it also mean that you would maybe have an interview with their former employers or employers, as well as doing a background check on these individuals?
Yes, and because we're not, there is going to be a cost to maintain this registry, and so therefore, we'd have to ask people to support the maintenance of the registry by a fee that's not intended to make us make profit, but simply to pay for the cost of maintaining the registry. And that will then be used to ensure that we can do the checks that are necessary to reissue somebody's certificate of good standing. So we definitely have to check out the responses that people have. I wouldn't say that interviews are going to be mandatory, but they'll be done on a case-by-case basis if necessary.
Thank you, VP Michael. I want to acknowledge raised hands of Director Colin Barnett and Anne-Marie. But before we take that question, I want to ask Kenisha Robinson. I believe VP Michael would have dealt with your question on what determines good standing in his answer. Can you confirm that, please? That's Kenisha Robinson. Does that clarify what good standing means?
I'm not sure if he said it, but it probably just missed me. So if you can just repeat it for me, please. I don't recall.
So good standing for us, Kenisha, is defined around whether or not an individual has been involved in any behavior that is unethical or that has or could put the profession into disrepute. So if an individual has been involved in behavior or is involved in behavior that has or could put the profession in disrepute or is involved in unethical behavior, then that individual would not be considered somebody who is in good standing. So it revolves completely around character issues. When I say character now, be very clear, this is not a religious thing. It is about whether or not an individual's professional bearing can stand up to scrutiny, and whether or not an individual can satisfy us that they have not been involved in unethical behavior. And remember, we defined earlier that unethical behavior does not simply stop a breach of societal norms, but it also covers breach of company codes of conduct for which people have been disciplined or for which people have been asked to leave the role. So people who are on this register may not all be working in HR. They could be doing other jobs, yes? But at the time of somebody's consulting of the register, somebody may have started on the register as an HR professional, but by the time somebody consults it, they are no longer there. They're doing another job. So it is all about whether we're persuaded by all the evidence that we have that an individual has not committed anything that is unethical or has not done anything to bring the profession into disrepute. I want to hasten to say though, and this is to Anne-Marie's point earlier, we wouldn't be taking off people off the register willy-nilly because we are very clear that it could damage an individual's reputation. And so we would not take people off the register once we have established it lightly. And a panel of HR professionals would be involved in making that decision. So no one individual could make any decision like that. And we'd have to make sure that that conversation is had with an individual before any action is taken.
Thank you, VP Michael. Director Colin?
All right, thanks, Chair, Director Melissa, President Lloyd, fellow directors, colleagues, good evening. Interesting discussions. I just have a comment going back to the chapters, which is to say that the formation of the chapters have really been primarily initiated out of the individuals within the respective regions that has taken the lead in getting the chapter together. And so we had some good people in the Montego Bay region that started the Western chapter, but we also started at one point something in Central Jamaica with some colleagues who were at Northern Caribbean University. So I say that to say that persons who are within certain geographical space can in fact initiate something, begin to get a group together and in fact come to Hermitage and, you know, make a case for a chapter in the area, not necessarily waiting on us to move into the particular area. So I'm encouraging that. At the same time, while I've heard so many good questions which are ideas. I take some of them as ideas in terms of formalizing some of the things and implementing some of the things that we want to do. And I am pleading for some persons to make themselves available to serve in some of these areas as we try and expand the capacity of the organization. Because even as we speak now, the capacity or scope of being able to implement things are basically around volunteerism and the need for additional persons to come forward. So I'm really encouraging persons who are on this particular panel discussion to contact the Secretariat. Jackie Dennis is here and Susan is here to see what area would really suit you based on your interests and skill set, so we can get some of these things moving a lot faster. So I just wanted to put that in. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Director Colin. All right, so there are a couple more questions coming back in on this register. Melissa James raised a good point. She asked about, let me go back to her question. I had it just now, but there is a part of the code, Melissa James, that deals with the disciplinary committee. I will just read it for you. It says, Hermitage takes concerns regarding alleged breaches of the code very seriously. To consider allegations of misconduct, a Hermitage disciplinary panel of peers will consider evidence-based allegations with action including public notifications of disciplinary action being possible if allegations are confirmed. Melissa, does that treat your question? She said the registry could extend itself to a complaints investigation body to get good standing certificate. Does that treat your question, Melissa? Melissa? All right, not getting her at the moment. And then Anne-Marie, your hand was up. You want to go ahead with your question?
I had actually put the suggestion in the chat in terms of the duration of the certificate being certified. I suggested 2 to 3 years. I'm not sure what the board is looking at in terms of the president and the directors. And also in terms of the register, I'm thinking instead of you having our members on it annually, we could look at having a 2-year register. After 2 years, it would have expired. Your status on the register would have expired. But also from a legal perspective, when as an attorney, you cannot have a criminal, you cannot be convicted of a criminal matter. And therefore, as HR professional, we could have similar standard. And I'm suggesting that in order to be on the register and also to be certified, we ask for references, police report, submit a national ID, complete the relevant form or photograph. We indicate if we have any outstanding court matters involving fraud, or if there's any criminal charges pending, or if we have any criminal conviction. Because if you want to have a register that is taken seriously, you have to, the standard set, the benchmark that you set, it must be high from day one. And that's my suggestion on it.
Thank you for that, Anne-Marie. I'd like to address the comment from Aldrine Williams McDonald. She says, while I support continuing learning in HR and I am very concerning the need to constantly sit exams to remain in the profession, I think this continuing learning should be a mandatory engagement of the HR professional in a set number of courses each year. ensure that they remain on the cutting edge of the field. The constant sitting of exams may be a deterrent for some HR professionals. So I think that was in response to our idea Anne-Marie had put on the table, which we are contemplating as a body, which is local certifications and requisite courses we must attain yearly, annually, or whatever period we decide to be relevant. VP Michael, President Lloyd, any comments on that point from Al Green, Williams, McDonald?
I'm trying to
find her comment. Okay, at 7:57, I think the timestamp helps.
7:58.
Okay. Right. Okay. So so I understand the point, Melissa, about the continuous learning. The truth is that continuing education is a criteria for remaining certified by international organizations today. So step one is to pass certifying exams, and there typically is no getting around that. And then step two is to remain in continuing education to be able to retain your certification. So I agree with my colleague McDonald on the need for continuous learning, but I don't think continuous learning could displace certification. It has to be continuous learning is what sustains somebody's right to hold on to their certification. So those of us who have these international certifications, we are required to do continuous learning in order to be able to keep them. But I hasten to say though that when we talk about certification exams, what we're doing is talking about testing HR professionals who are involved in practice on what they know, on what they already know. So we're not asking anybody to write essays and provide research information. We're just testing the extent to which somebody is proficient in the various HR practice areas, and typically that's the approach that professional organizations take. So I don't think there's a way out of the exams, because we have to test competencies. By whatever means, we have to test practice competencies by whatever means in order to be able to hold somebody up as a certified professional.
Thank you, VP Michael. All right, so do we have any other questions? Because we'll be.
I wanted to add to say something on that. Yeah, so the issue of using the terminology exams sometimes is a little limiting, because what we really talk about is assessment. Assessment to determine competence, and assessment comes in different ways. It comes through observation, it comes through portfolios, it may come through examinations, etc. I support the fact that initial passing some type of exam is critical through that assessment. But where it comes to maintaining the certification, if you use some of the international bodies, you will find different means of recording those continued education hours. It may come through attending seminars, which are not examinable. It may come through being involved in a project at the workplace that you have to articulate what your role was. It may come through sitting on a board which has some strategic leadership component or competence that it's trying to achieve. So the methodology of of assessment will vary. And I think that is important in the application of this as opposed to a paper-based examination as we move forward. That there are different ways that we can come to a determination of somebody's ongoing learning and maintaining relevance within the profession.
Right. If I could just say, Melissa, that I want to acknowledge Melissa's suggestion that maybe, in other words, if I'm reading Melissa correctly, I think she's suggesting that there's no opportunity now for people to complain, to lodge complaints about an HR practitioner. And so she is suggesting that if a complaints register could also form part of a reference material for determining if somebody is in good standing. So if we get a lot of complaints about John Brown, Mary Jane, about ill-treating people, abrogating people's rights and so on, then if we had a complaint register would be one of the sources we look at. So I want to acknowledge that suggestion, which we actually never thought about before. But then, you know, this is what happens when you have former directors in these meetings with very good suggestions. A complaints register is a great idea, Melissa, to allow the public to have somebody to complain to anonymously about an HR professional. So I think President, we take that offline and have a further conversation on that. Thanks, Melissa.
Right. And someone, Galaxy J6 says a professional assessment method could be portfolios, including evidence of projects, action, research. And I think that's part of what Colin had said as well.
For continuous improvement, for continuous,
yes, for continuous learning.
Right. All right. So
yes,
other questions, we will now close the question and answer segment.
One question, Melissa. Sorry, I'm not seeing my raise hand button.
Okay, no problem.
So just want to ask President Loy.
Yes, Mr.
Those of us who teach in the profession, who teach HR, would be exempt?
Something for us to think about, Don. I can't tell you that though. But let's see. I guess part of the evaluation would determine what, because one person could be teaching just one small area of HR. So let's look at it.
We have to research and keep abreast of new trends,
right,
in order to teach.
So Dawn, I am going to take it offline and put you as a part of this committee. You've been a part of Hermatch for a long time, and so I am going to put you on the committee so that we can get some of your suggestions. And Michael, I think Anne-Marie is willing to jump in as well based on what I see, herself and Marsha. And I think I saw, or being a part of an ethics committee. I think Therese, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, said she's willing to serve as well.
And Kanisha is willing to assist with the registry also.
Oh, wonderful. So we have some help. So we are going to ask you to contact the office tomorrow. Contact the office tomorrow and put your emails in the chat as well, so that we can get your contact information.
I mean, maybe I could just say to Dawn, I mean, so I do teach myself too, but I think that what we want, Dawn, is to make sure that when we certify somebody, that we can actually stand behind a certain level of experience. So the international organizations tend to have different levels of qualifications depending on an individual's experience. So if the objective is to hold somebody out as a certified practitioner, then we'd have to make sure that there is a reasonable experience before we could do that. So I think that, so I think that we would then have to determine, does teaching provide some exemptions? But at the end of the day, we would still need to make sure that there is practitioner experience determination.
Thank you, VP Michael. All right, so we will be coming to a close. I just want to again say how exciting it is to hear the value of exchange around the code and the willingness of so many of our members to assist in its development. There was a comment by Director Lloyd Parks that I think is fitting to close. It says, things are in progress and in train. All the policy standards and procedures will be developed and promulgated. So it is building blocks brick by brick as we establish all the policy framework around the ideas that we have all put forward on the table. And that's what Hermage is about as we again look at this ambition that we have of building businesses, developing people, fostering better workplaces, and optimizing the contribution of human capital. So before we go, I want to again remind the members of the exciting activities left for the remainder of HR Week 2020. Tomorrow at 6:30, we have a public lecture entitled Gratitude is a Must, Proven Tools and Strategies to Use in People Development. That's going to be facilitated by Dr. Aisha Thompson. He's the CEO of Essential Medical Services. And the virtual Zoom link is the same as today's link. So we've kept the same meeting IDs for all of our sessions. And of course, tomorrow is HR Day. And because we're in our 40th year, the color for the 40th anniversary is red. So we're inviting all HR members to wear red tomorrow. We have masks on sale. You would have noted that to contact the Secretariat. So if you didn't get your mask to wear tomorrow, it's still not too late, right? And it is red, fitting for the occasion. And we ask that you take pictures tomorrow with your colleagues in your red so that we can put together a collage that will be shared with everybody next week. There's also a poster competition ongoing around the theme HR Leading the New Normal. So you don't have to be an expert at art. You just have to have an idea as to what this theme means to you and put it on a poster and submit it. We're not telling you the prize yet because we want you to do it for the love and not for the likes, right? And on Friday, we have Hermage Got Talent. That's going to start at 7 p.m. The talent is us. So we have at least 4 exquisite performers, including yours truly. I'm not telling you what I'm going to do, so you have to come on Friday night to see what talented members we have. If you're interested, again, please click on the link or contact the Secretariat to register the talent piece that you will have. And Friday night, we'll wrap up our celebration. And again, any social media posts you make around HR Week, please use the hashtags HR Week 2020, hashtag HR Leading the New Normal, and hashtag Hermage40. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to attend this very important event. I think it was very fruitful. Yes, President Lloyd?
Just reminding persons that we have the master class in November, or conference, November 19th to 20th. So we are inviting everyone. We are inviting everyone, and we are asking everyone to put that on their calendar. The 19th of November, the 20th. Look out. Please contact the Secretariat. You can do your early registration. More information will be coming, but we want you to put that in mind. We want you to come, bring as many persons as you can to come and support Hermage. So I know that Anne-Marie will bring the entire St. Anne. So that will happen. And I think Aldrian said she wants to thank us for our invitation, although she's not a member. Those of us who are not members, we look forward to you becoming members of Hermage. We want your support, and we are trying our best to do our best for you, and so we thank you for that. Melissa, back to you.
Thank you, President Lloyd. All right, so have a good evening, distinguished colleagues. Happy HR week, and see you at the public lecture tomorrow at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you, panel. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks, Melissa.
You're welcome, Dawn. If you want to stay back to chit chat or to drop contacts in the chat, I've tried to note as many numbers as possible, but please contact the Secretariat for membership information, to participate in the registry, all of that. We look forward to seeing you.
Melissa, are there refreshments? I want to know if I must remain on. Do you have any refreshments?
No, we didn't cater this occasion.
Oh, dear.
Yes, Michael, ice
There-
cream, ice
You know,
cream.
I'm very disappointed, you know.
You don't see the ice cream. Look again. Look, look, look.
But I'm looking.
And Mary,
Ice cream.
and Mary has the happy birthday open, and that's what started off Michael, you know.
Yes, Anne-Marie. This season.
It's not too late. I like cheesecake.
Yes.
We all like cheesecake.
We do.
Right.
This is a great time to stop the recording. Yeah.
Yes, sorry.